We welcome you again to another episode of the Nigerian Theatre Witnesses to History. And the witness we have today started from last week when we started talking about his incursion into the field of theatre, which he didn't plan for because he didn't apply for it. Family pressure made him to apply for law in Ife and Nsukka. But his name didn't come out under any of those two universities. Came out in a different university entirely, University of Calabar, under theatre arts. And that was an answer to his prayer that God, if he wanted him to do theatre, should know how to arrange it. That arrangement of God is what Professor Effiong Johnson has been following since that time. Today we want to continue the journey. We just finished his starting point at Unical. Now he's taking Professor Dakwa Deluba by his word that if he wanted to study masters, he should just come to Ibadan to see him. So what happened when you got to Ibadan to see Professor Deluba?
I went to Ibadan. My family advised me. I already had admission to go to Stanford in the US, but the family fortunes dwindled, and I was advised to pick up a master's degree form in a Nigerian university. And I remembered the hanging promise Deluba had given me. Being in Lagos, I had also written already an entrance exam to go to University of Lagos.
Right.
I had communicated to my former alma mater, Calabar, that I was interested in the masters. So I got admission as it were in those places. But then I remember that Deluba had rushed Ibadan from Lagos. I introduced myself and the man was excited. In fact, on his desk, he first sent for Coke and biscuit for me. While by himself arranged for the form to be brought for me from graduate school.
Oh.
I filled the form on his desk and gave it to him.
Really?
Yes. He was excited. He was impressed. He almost adopted me as son. When I replayed the memory of how that promise came.
Yes.
And he took the rest. And when I was given admission, he sent for me that it went through, I should come over. That was how I got to Ibadan to do my master's.
Right.
And I had wonderful classmates. Dakwa being there, like a father. I had Ruben Abati.
That's right.
Abati and I were in Calabar also together.
Yeah.
Marcelinos Okaku, who is a professor in Uriben today. Emmanuel Emasialu, who is a professor today in
Port Harcourt.
Tayo Bisheson, who is a professor today in one other university in the West.
Yes.
Robert Obiano, the late Amatu Braid, and who else was in that class? And I am today a professor also in that class.
Amatu Braid was my set, was a good dancer.
Okay, she picked up a job, I think in the River State Arts.
Yes, she was in the...
Much later came to do a master's with us.
Yeah.
Okay, so I did a master's in Ibadan by the grace of God, made a straight PhD mark, and I did a PhD also in Ibadan.
That's right.
Yeah.
Tell me about what happened to you in Ibadan.
Several things happened. Several things happened in Ibadan, which, oh my God. You know that man called Dakwa? Dakwa could be mad in the daytime. I had some encounters with Dakwa. The first terrible encounter I had with Dakwa was after the master's program. Dakwa called me by himself and said, "Do you know you did so well? I would advise that you embark on a straight PhD." Whereas the policy of my school, I was a trainee staff of University of Cross River State.
Yes.
I was to finish masters, go back, work for 2 years before continuing my
The
PhD.
PhD.
But Adeluba suggested I could do a straight PhD. And I told him about this bond. He said, but if he gave a letter to my VC, he hoped that that letter would be honored for me to do a straight PhD. Frankly, he wrote a very impressive letter to the Vice Chancellor of University of Cross River State to release me that I was a very good and strong candidate, which against the norm I was released.
Oh,
sir.
Your VC approved?
Approved. But when I got back to Ibadan, that boy, you can't believe it, told me he had changed his mind.
Why?
That he will not accept me again for the PhD.
He would not?
He would not, and he did not.
Ah!
That is what I'm telling you, and the man could be mad in the daytime. See, this experience I'm telling you, Bodesho one day, who was my supervisor at the masters, Effiong Shofison, who was a friend and a lecturer.
Yes.
Matthew Mukoro, all those staff who knew me and who knew about the development marveled. And some of them came to try to talk to Baba about this sudden change of mind. Baba fled up the mall.
Somebody you told and gave a letter.
A letter. Baba fled up and he said to me, I quote, "Do you think you can be admitted to a PG program through politics?"
Whose politics was that?
It's just because other people had to go speak on my behalf concerning to try to make him see reason.
I know.
He said I over politicized the whole thing.
I know that of Adeluba.
And this matter got to the dean, knowledge of the dean postgraduate school. You know, because the dean postgraduate school also seemingly had known about me, that I had told him in a previous conversation that I would have to return to you for a 2-year program before coming back. For him to see me with that letter that I was going to be admitted, he was very excited. So the dean postgraduate school came to challenge Baba. Baba said I was politicizing the whole thing, that if I thought I was going to be admitted to do a PG program on the platform of politics, it was a joke. Baba called me into his office and abused me in English language, French. And Yoruba.
you got the full treatment.
For 1 hour. I had two choices. Baba abused me when he saw that I was understanding the abuse. He switched to French. Then he switched to Yoruba. And then the secretary wasn't helping matters. The secretary would be begging, lying on the floor begging, and he fled. He became totally intoxicated. Oh my God! I had two options. One option was either to beat up Baba for him to keep quiet and I would leave Ibadan for good, or just sat there like a totem, absorbing everything, and when he was exhausted, I would go. Thank God I took to the second option. So I just sat there. Baba abused me. Baba quarreled. The secretary rolling on the floor begging. I was the only one who was just sitting like a totem till he gasped and he was exhausted. He was exhausted and he stopped. When he stopped, that was the day I packed my things and left Ibadan. That is how that experience ended. And Effiong Shofison told me, well, Johnson, you see this man? He can be mad. Landry Bamidele said, what? In the circumstance, go back and wait. And the next time you get it. So I think after that year, Shofison became the head of the department and said for me to come and enroll for my PhD. So I went back to Ibadan to enroll for my PhD. And then some other things happened during the PhD. The first thing was positive. In my first seminar presentation in the PhD program, we used to have 3 seminar presentations in the PhD program. That day we were 2 candidates. The current Professor Dan Omashola was doing his 3rd and final presentation, having been about 3 years older than me in the program. And then this was my first seminar presentation. Femi Fatoba was the graduate coordinator. And Femi had met with us to tell us we would have 10 minutes of presentation. We should just go straight at the point and make a brilliant presentation because the entire faculty will be there. And the whole thing had been advertised for about 3 weeks. Everybody who was with the faculty was there.
Definitely.
And Mashallah, thank God for him now. I don't know him now, but then Mashallah was somebody that would hardly take corrections. Mashallah had about a 48-page seminar presentation.
How was he going to do it?
And that's the question I asked him. And I had about 10 pages. So when I said to Mashallah, how are you going to do this 10 minutes thing? He told me, Johnson, this is your first. You should be worried about yourself. This is my last. I've done 2 before. That's what he said. He was the first to present. And his presentation had neither head nor tail. One dangerous scholar from linguistics, Omole, used to ride on a bicycle.
Pious.
He was a notorious scholar in Ibadan.
Yeah.
He was in that presentation.
Yeah.
Omole said,
his house was next to the faculty there.
Yes. Omole said, gentlemen, the way you rambled without head or tail in this presentation, may I know who your supervisor is? With Omole's comment, of course, Dan knew that he was in trouble.
Yeah.
And he was actually trying to seek solace to protect himself. When he said, my supervisor is Dagbo Adeluba here. Baba was mad. Adeluba was visibly mad. He got up, flew his abada left and right. It was crash his buttocks. You remember?
Yeah.
That was one of his strategies.
Yes.
He said, don't rope me in. Don't rope me in. You stick out there and defend your foolishness. From that day, don't rope me in became a slogan in the department. You're doing anything now, colleagues will say, don't rope me in. He discountenanced Dan, and the relationship with Dan ended that day in that forum. And then I was the next.
I'm not surprised.
Yes.
That's Dakpo for you.
It finished there. I'll come back to it. And Femi Fatoba called me. He said, Johnson, he said, the way things are you going to disgrace the department further? So that I can cut off this thing now? Or are you going to try to clear the mess that your colleague has put us into? This was my first seminar. And I stood up, picked the microphone, and talked offhand about my seminar. And impressed everybody. Dakbo clapped for me.
At the end?
At the end.
Ooh.
In fact, somebody made a comment and Dakbo volunteered the answer on my behalf.
Really?
Dakbo said, either the fellow who made that comment was not paying attention to what I presented, or he was just trying to expose his ignorance. Do you know that the departmental board, based on that performance, wrote off the other 2 seminars for me?
Tell me.
This one, by the departmental verdict, was clear enough to show everybody that I knew where I was going to and I should be allowed to continue.
Wow.
That's what happened. So that is what endeared Dakbo to me, even though he was not my supervisor. Landry Bangdela was my supervisor.
Right.
Right. I continued. I finished that in 3 years. I was to come to Ibadan and pick my date of defense. When I arrived, it wasn't a date of defense I was given. The departmental board had met and decided that my work was, by the information, too close to what someone else had done 5 years earlier, and mine was cancelled.
Ooh.
I don't know that someone till today.
Nobody told you?
Nobody told me.
Why?
I don't know. That's what my supervisor relayed, departmental verdict about me. I had to start the PhD afresh.
That must have been very disappointing.
It was. I wept. I remembered I paid for a room in the alumni center, buried myself there and wept. And then I told myself, weeping will not solve this problem. I did a PhD for my career and made up my mind to choose a topic that I could swear nobody else would have done anything on. That is how I chose writing on Grotowski, experimental directors of the Nigerian theater. That's what my PhD was based. And as I said and predicted, of course, nobody had done anything close to
that.
2 years after, I was ready again for the defense of this one. And a month to the defense, fire gutted the entire department and burnt 5 copies of the work that I had submitted. I was called again, and the tragic news was broken to me. I had to pick pieces here and there to have a bundle. On my way to submitting this new bundle, I crashed in an auto crash along Lagos-Ibadan Expressway.
No.
In fact, a trailer knocked the bus. We almost ended up in a river. God intervened. The river is like that wall there. The bus, which was just going haywire in the bush, grounded. Just a few, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 steps to the river. And we came out, the bus was damaged, my teeth were torn apart, my body. I had to nurse myself in the hospital in Ibadan for 2 weeks before re-nursing the work.
Wow.
Writing missing pages, torn pages to submit.
Wow.
Everyone was sympathetic. Adakbo Deluba was sympathetic. My supervisor, all those scholars in Ibadan were sympathetic about what happened to me. Then the defense was fixed for a Monday. 10 o'clock. By 8 o'clock, ASU struck. And that strike lasted for 1 year.
I remember that strike.
Yes. That strike started the day I was to defend. And it lasted for 1 year. My defense was postponed about 10 times. On the last one, Dakpo was mad again.
What happened? What did
Dakpo
you do?
had become HOD again.
Oh, he was back.
Yes, and he was the one that advertised for the defense. He sent out letters to the external examiner, who was the Akonji was my external, who had arrived. The guy from African Studies was on ground. Everybody was on ground. They had taken their seats for the exam, which was billed at 10 by Dakpo Deluba. Here was I coming from Balewa Hall with my friend, now Professor Effiong Nathan Agoro.
Yeah, Savior.
We were roommates. He was escorting me because his own defense was a month after my own.
Okay.
Immediately, Dakpo cited me with a suit. He said, "Where do you think you are going dressed like that?"
Why were you in a suit?
I don't know. Oh my God.
I don't believe it.
He said, "Where do you think you are going dressed like that?" And I said, "With due respect, sir,
What would you?
I'm coming for the defense." He said, "Which defense?" which defense? I said, sir, the defense that you arranged for me, the external is on ground. He said, my friend, would you go back and dress like a civilian? There will be no defense. Look, this thing I'm talking about, Baba was shouting at the top of his voice.
What? In front of the department?
Yes. I mean, Bamidele had to rush out from his office. Umukoro had to come out of his office because he was shouting. Every staff on ground who had come for that exam had to come out to see Baba. He was vibrating. Lamre said, Baba, that's my supervisor, Baba, you are mad. You are mad. Today, I am going to tame that madness. He grabbed him. Both of them wrestled and went into his office. Look, they jammed the door. These two people wrestled in the office. I don't know what they were. The secretary had to lie on the floor to peep under the gap between the floor and the door to see who was giving who a pinfall. As it were. This thing lasted for 1 hour, Larion. We were standing outside. What is happening inside? The secretary will give us signal that the people were still alive. After 1 hour, Landry came out with his shirt ruffled. He said, Johnson, sure you can pray. Sure you can pray. I said, yes. He said, you see that demon there? You see that demon in there? He is very mad. He said, he will ask you 2 questions. If he must hold that exam, he will ask you 2 questions. And if you did not answer them correctly, he will fail you. I told him, Baba, fix the exam. Give the student the opportunity to hear your questions. If he doesn't answer, fail him. Then he told me, okay, the exam will hold at 5 p.m. This is to 10.
No more 10 o'clock.
No more 10 o'clock. That is how I had to go back to Balewa Hall to be a civilian. Waiting for 5 o'clock. Praying prayers. Oh God, help me. Which 2 questions will this man ask me? I must get this PhD.
Very exciting. All those names are great names in the theater that Professor Effiong has been mentioning. Some of them late, but most of them are live and playing critical roles in different departments around the world. And I don't want us to miss on another episode to be able to enjoy what happened when you became a civilian and when you came, what you did before coming back for the 5 p.m. How he finally got his PhD from Ibadan and went on to do other things. You've been on the Nigerian Theatre Witnesses to History for this episode. We'll be continuing with Professor Effiong Johnson on his exciting journey in Ibadan with his mentor and who is also his albatross, Professor Dakwa Deluba. Join us the same time next week, Thursday, when we come back for another episode on the Nigerian Theatre Witnesses to History.